WisconsinEye's Campaign 2024 programming is sponsored by Wisconsin Counties Association, Nicolet National Bank, Wisconsin Hospital Association, Operating Engineers Local 139, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, the Wisconsin Laborers District Council, and North Central State's Regional Council of Carpenters. To support programs like this, please consider a tax-deductible donation at wiseye.org/donate or by texting WisEye to 44321.
David DeGroot of Mount Pleasant is the Republican candidate for the 66th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. David DeGroot, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Hey, love to be on Wisconsin Public Radio. Well,
WisconsinEye, yes. What is your campaign's key message? Why are you running for this office?
Well, my key message is that I'm a doer, and I've had great success in the past, and I'm here to get things done. Too often there's games that are played at every level, and the voters get tired of that, and they like to see action, and so that's why I'm here, is to take some of the success that I've had at the local level with Mount Pleasant and bring it statewide. Hopefully we can clone some of that.
So if you're elected, what's an example of a bill that would be a priority for you to introduce?
Boy, it is a good question, and I'm not going to come into this thinking that I have all the answers. I think my single biggest priority upon getting elected is to listen and to figure out what's going on and what kind of a bill I can construct to make a difference going forward. To this point, I'm going to be a rookie in the legislature, and there's so much that I've got to learn. There's so many people there that have served before me that have a great handle on this, but I'm all ears and ready to dig in.
So if you're elected, you're entering the legislature during a biennial budget year. The state has more than a $3 billion projected surplus. What would be your top two priorities for use of that surplus funding?
Well, anything that's taken from the taxpayers really should be, first and foremost returned to them. The rainy day fund is something that you always want to keep funded because things do happen that come up out of nowhere, and you want to be able to fund that. But I'm always a strong advocate for a tax cut, returning the taxes to the proper owners. That would be the Wisconsin residents.
What about any spending priorities? Are there any areas of state government in the state budget that you think need more investment?
The biennial budget is something that is really worked on and picked apart, and at this point in time, I don't see any real problems with it. Everybody has a pet project that they like to see money spent on. I don't know that I'm going to be any different that way, but at this point in time, it looks like we've got a pretty reasonable budget, set, and Governor has signed it, and we live with the lumps, that we have.
What about K-12 education? It's a leading issue for many voters. Where does that fit in your campaign priorities?
Well, education is always a priority. And again, just to go back to your previous question about where should money be spent, we hear all the time that K-12 isn't funded enough, and it's something that my opponent has mentioned, that we need more spending on K-12. Then on the other hand, when the budget comes out and spending is increased for K-12, she votes against it. Again, to me that's game playing. It's not being very forthright. So in the case of K-12, I'd like to see more accountability. We're spending a lot of money when the student body increases. We're spending more money because there's more students. On the other hand, when student enrollment is declining, we're still spending more money. I'd like to see some accountability, and I think that maybe there should be some auditing going on.
What about the state's higher education system? 4-year colleges, 2-year colleges, technical colleges. What does the future of that system look like to you, and where should the legislature be focusing?
The higher education, has its own problems with enrollment, and again, as enrollment declines, for some reason, there's still a request for more spending on a grand scale. I'm not sure how that can happen realistically, and I look the taxpayers in the eye and tell them that they're getting good value. As far as the 2-year programs, those have kind of been on and off of the chopping block. We see, value for them being there, but at the end of the day, if those campuses aren't getting a reasonable amount of enrollment, we have to look at shifting those finite dollars to a better, more productive use.
What do you see as the state's largest workforce development challenge, and how would you propose to address it?
Well, boy, in our own neck of the woods, with what we've done with Foxconn and with bringing Microsoft on, we're always looking for workers. We've got programs to train people up. There's all kinds of mentorships and that sort of thing going on. We're looking for able bodies. We have very good general contractors running these programs, and they pay particular attention, to our local neighborhoods, and we're doing the very best we can at the local level. How that impacts things on a more statewide basis, not sure yet. Other than the fact that we are continuing to need more people in these fields. And
is there a role for the legislature in increasing the worker availability?
Boy, sometimes I think it's best for the legislature just to stay out of things and let the market and let the doers get their doing done.
Investments in public and energy infrastructure grow our state's economy. This also provides an opportunity to invest in our state's workforce, but currently there are no requirements for hiring local workers. Would you support a state resident hiring requirement for state, local, and utility scale infrastructure investments?
Well, again, that's an idea that sounds great in theory, but when it comes down to the hard practice of being able to do that and commit to it, it could be a different story. Again, locally, we try to subscribe to those kinds of things, but at the end of the day, when work has to be done, and a local person is brought in, or a program person is brought in, and they show up on the first day after much has been invested in them, and they don't show up the second day, what is the contractor supposed to do? I mean, do they roust them out of bed? I mean, they can't threaten them, but the willingness has to be there on the worker's side to make it work. And it's sad when that happens, and if it's a 10% requirement, if that 10% isn't met, the contractor is fined for something that is really outside of his ability. And I've heard some horror stories where, try as they might, that exact thing happens, and I think it's unfair that the contractor gets fined for something that they have no control over.
Employee classification is an issue in the construction industry. Some employers misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay them in cash off the books. This lowers costs by avoiding payroll taxes and unemployment insurance, and it puts compliant companies at a disadvantage when bidding on projects. Plus, misclassified workers may be denied minimum wage protections or overtime pay. Are you aware of this issue, and what do you think should be done about it?
I'm aware that it might be an issue. I don't know how big of an issue it is. Again, getting back to Microsoft, getting back to Foxconn, we have nationwide general contractors that run these operations, and it's not in their best interest to do the kind of practices that you're suggesting. They're highly scrutinized, and I just don't think that they want their name getting sullied by doing that. So again, up close, where I've had some oversight, we don't see that problem happening. Where it may be an issue in other places statewide, maybe at the far corners of the state. Again, it's something that certainly should be looked at. I don't know that there is a state solution for that yet, or if the requirement is even necessary.
Affordable rental housing is an issue in Wisconsin. Some support government-imposed rent control to maintain affordability, while others argue keeping rent artificially low will decrease rental supply, resulting in increased prices. What is your sense of housing as an issue, and which best addresses rental housing affordability? Is it rent control, or building more rentals, or some other solution?
Well, locally, we recognized years ago that we were going to have a shortage of housing units in our community. So by being able to change some of our ordinances and make it a little bit easier to build and make it easier for lot sizes to be smaller so that first-time home buyers are able to buy something more affordably, and so that developers' deals would actually pencil out because it's a big concern with the rising costs of materials and real estate and everything else to make these things work out. So,
is there a role for the state in making housing more affordable or increasing rental supply?
Well, what we've done locally is put thousands of more units on, to address that concern. Most of them have been market rate, just because that's where the demand is. And from the standpoint of what you're asking, it's harder for affordable housing deals to pencil out for the developers. So I think we're always interested in looking to see what we can do through some of the state agencies that we already have to encourage that kind of growth.
Medical systems are facing numerous headwinds in the form of inflation, workforce development, and issues around Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, resulting in fewer services and even the closure of a hospital system in western Wisconsin. What would you do to preserve access to care and prevent future closures?
Well, I think what we have to do is, take a look at the services that are being delivered, and where are we duplicating services, where are we duplicating programs, and see what we can do in terms of saving money in terms of those delivered services. I do know that there's a certain amount of waste, fraud, and abuse in those systems, and again, as we can maybe get a handle on some of that, maybe that allows us to spread that money around a little bit more effectively so that we can serve some of the more outreach areas.
Do you support increasing the Medicaid reimbursement rate to hospitals?
The hospitals are getting ripped off when it comes to Medicare, and I think that that's something that we can certainly look into.
Mental health care is also a growing concern for many Wisconsinites and a concern for state and county budgets. What are you hearing on mental health care in your district, and what are some possible solutions?
Well, I think part of our drug culture is definitely due to mental health issues, and the two impact each other. The two add costs, and it's our previous dearly departed Jonathan Delagrave, who was our county executive, always took the lead in finding ways to develop and deliver better mental health services and be able to squeeze a nickel at the same time.
Is there a role for the state in addressing mental health care?
Well, I think the state is always going to be involved in that because it's a support system that the state needs to be involved in. It's too difficult for the counties to take that on by themselves, and so the counties are always going to be looking for some kind of reimbursement from the state.
How should Wisconsin move forward on the issue of abortion?
Well, the issue of abortion is something that's bandied about a lot. I don't know that it's that big of a deal in my district. It's talked about an awful lot in Madison. My opponent, being pro-abortion, certainly lets everybody know where she stands on it. like most Republicans, I'm pro-life, but the question becomes, where do you put the line?
Yeah, where is the line for you in terms of number of weeks?
Well, the way that the state law is now, I think it was Act 58, which was approved in 2015, puts it at 20 weeks. I think that that's a reasonable starting point.
Do you support any exceptions?
Well, the existing law does support exceptions for life and the health of the mother. But I think the best way to approach this has been outlined by Senator Ron Johnson. Senator Johnson has always maintained this may be an excellent place for a binding referendum. See, because the Republicans are all over the map on where to draw that line. And I think that that's a good thing, because we tend to think for ourselves and we can foment our own arguments. We're not in lockstep with any preconceived notion of where that line has to be. This is a good place for the voters to be able to weigh in and say, here's what we think is reasonable. And I think that reasonable parties can agree to a reasonable solution.
What are the pressing transportation needs in your district, and how important is it that these needs are addressed, and for the state to keep on schedule with the reconstruction of our aging interstates and significant corridors of commerce?
Well, locally, we've been blessed by the Foxconn development, by the Microsoft development, in speeding up the highway reconstruction that was actually kind of put on the shelf while things were going on at the zoo interchange. We were able to approach the federal government along with the state to speed up our infrastructure, not only the interstate, but Highway 20, Highway KR. These are all county highways in our district. We're really pleased with where we've been on that locally, because it's set us up to really grow our industrial base, our jobs, and the actual ability to improve our
Local economy?
The economy and also quality of life type things. Statewide, it's highway infrastructure is always going to be something that we need to continue funding.
PFAS and other water contaminants are a concern for a growing number of Wisconsinites. Do you see this as an important issue, and how would you propose to address it?
It's something that we've been hearing about. I don't know, to what level it's at, in terms of what we see out in Lake Michigan. I know that there are people that are, spending, great time, mostly just getting the word out, because nobody understands what PFAS is. But it is a growing problem.
Is there a role for the state with PFAS water contamination?
I don't know that there is yet. I think that our water standards are already exceptional, and that's something that we just have to keep an eye on.
Well, we are down to our final two questions. How would you describe the leading differences between you and your opponent?
Well, I would say that my opponent tends to be a creature of Madison, and is always looking for a Madison solution to a problem. In some cases, problems that don't exist. I have nothing against her personally, but I come from out of private sector, where we do things, where we get things done, and in order to get things done, you have to have some kind of a foundation of agreement, and you build off of that. I don't have the luxury of just going to Madison and hoping for the best. I mean, I'm here to be an active player in fixing the knotty problems that we have, and making a better future for our kids, our grandkids, and those that want to continue to come to Wisconsin.
Final question for you. Let's say you're elected this fall. You get a magic wand you can use in the state capitol to resolve one issue in a way that brings all parties, all people together. What would that issue be?
Well, maybe the answer is in your fundamental words. If I had a magic wand, it sure would be nice to be able to wave it and get both sides of the aisle to sit down and start finding some common ground. We seem to have so little of it, and it impacts the ability to write good law, to implement it, and then when it's written and it's vetoed, you just start this circular drain all over again. It sure would be nice to be able to find common ground on both sides of the aisle.
All right. Thank you, David DeGroot of Mount Pleasant, the Republican candidate for the 66th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. David DeGroot, thank you for talking with WisconsinEye.
Very well. Good luck to WisconsinEye, and I really enjoyed being on your program.
This programming is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for watching.